everyone. So this is Kseniya, and she is a student that's currently in grade 12 in our academy program. And very recently, she's found out that first she's been accepted to UBC into their kinesiology program, which is amazing. But she has also recently found out that she's won $30,000 in a UBC President's Entrance Scholarship to UBC, as well as another $3,500, I believe, in scholarship offerings from UVic as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so she's really here to just share her experiences of going through the scholarship process, and I think she's an incredible example of what it looks like to be successful and determined throughout really your entire grade 12 year. And what's crazy is that process really hasn't even finished, and you really have a lot more time in terms of scholarship applications and hearing back from scholarship committees. But I think for our team, one of the biggest reasons, outside of just the fact that you have been really successful with scholarships, one of the reasons that we wanted to interview you is just because you have been so consistent throughout the entire year and incredibly determined in making sure that you get your applications done, that you prioritize the applications, you submit your essays, and really you're the example student of what we want in the academy program. And so we're super excited to have you and just to hear your kind of feedback on what it was like going through the journey of scholarships and university applications. So thank you for being here. And I guess to start, the first question that I have for you is I'd love to know a little bit more about where you were at with the scholarship and university application process in grade 11. So like, had you looked at scholarships at all? Had you prepped a lot for that? Were you working on community initiatives, or what did that look like?
Well, to be honest, I actually was quite clueless on the whole process before I joined the GrantMe Academy program. All I knew is that universities wanted student leadership, good grades, and maybe some good leadership skills. And that's kind of all I was told in my years throughout high school before grade 12. And so I guess to prepare for these applications, what I did was apply myself to a lot of clubs, a lot of like extracurriculars and things like that, just because that's the only thing I knew about this whole process. And so I think the thing that I only did was just gain a lot of leadership experience and just apply for a job as well. But other than those things, I did not know a clue about applications. I have never applied for a scholarship, a grant, or a university before this program. So yeah, that's where I started out.
Got it. Okay. And so like, tell me a little bit about, because I think we talked about this before we started the interview, but I think one of the things that our team was so impressed with, I think it was Eddie that enrolled you into the program. And I remember him coming out to me and saying, this girl's amazing. Like, she has really got it all, and she's going to be so successful. And I think that a lot of students don't realize that it's so much of the scholarship and university admissions process is not what you're doing in grade 12, it's what you've done up until that point. And so tell me a little bit about like some of the community initiatives and leadership experiences that you created or that you had in grade 10 and 11 that you think supported your journey in grade 12.
Yeah, sure. So I think the first thing that I did when I entered high school, or when things started to kind of kick off in high school, was I joined sports teams. So I love athletics and I love sports, and I'm a volleyball player and a rugby player. Another thing that I did was I joined a community leadership class that was available at our school. And through that class, I just got so many connections and so many opportunities to create my own initiatives and enroll, like make teams and we just do community initiatives together basically. So two of the main initiatives that I did with the class outside of school was we did two main fundraisers, one for the Canadian Cancer Society and another for Covenant House of Vancouver, which raises awareness and funds for homeless youth in Vancouver. And I felt like doing community initiatives that were close to home, so Vancouver-based or North Vancouver-based even, kind of really resonate with me because I feel like I'm helping very locally, and I think that makes a big impact on my local community.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I did was I joined another extracurricular activity, which is another volunteer activity. I joined the Big Brothers of Greater Vancouver. And not only is that a local organization, but it's a Canadian-wide organization, which is, it's just, it makes me feel like I'm making a bigger impact when it's like that. And I realized that through my initiatives, I like working with youth and kids. And that also led me to becoming a lifeguard and swim instructor. So I could further work on my skills with working with youth and kids and just giving back to my local community in that way. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And I think what's so interesting about your involvement, and you speak really, you probably are underestimating like the impact that you've had. And I won't go into it too much, but I know how much money you've raised and really the amazing work that you've done. And it's so impressive. But I think the biggest thing is like there's clearly a theme of really supporting youth and empowering youth to have access to the same opportunities that you've had, and really to create opportunities for them to pursue what they're passionate about. And I think what's so interesting is that although you have that focus on youth, it's still really diverse in terms of your actual involvement. Like it's not all put into one activity, but you really have all of these different initiatives that you're committed to in your community, which I think really supported your applications, because you had that diversity and you had a really strong way to differentiate yourself because your involvement was so broad. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree that I see like a theme within all of my volunteer activities and my extracurriculars. And I agree. There's like a diversity between working with youth a little bit and kids, and I don't know, I've just kind of stuck to that theme, I guess, throughout high school.
Totally. Yeah. And I think another thing that's so interesting for us, especially when we do a lot of these conversations with students that have been really successful, is that you often started this journey of really being a leader in your community and in your school, but at that point really not even connecting it to what was going to be possible for you in terms of scholarships and university applications. And I think the biggest thing that we've seen with our best students all the time is that you're really just going out in the world trying to create an impact and trying to make a difference for other people. And it's only because of that you end up winning scholarships and having success with university applications, but that's not actually why you're doing it in the first place. And I think that's why we see students that have a ton of success start so early, because they understand that they're really just doing it to create an impact, and the result of that is scholarship and university success. And so I think that's a great thing for other students to understand. The earlier you start and the bigger difference that you're making early on, the better opportunity you're going to have later on. So and your work has been pretty amazing. So congratulations on that. Okay, and then so tell me a little bit about like your journey in September, because I think you joined our program in end of September-ish.
Yes.
Yeah, end of September. And so obviously, like you said, you didn't really know a lot about what that process was going to look like heading into grade 11. So tell me a little bit about like what that process looked like for you from September all the way through till April now, and maybe some of the challenges that you faced along the way, but how you kept yourself motivated.
Sure. Well, when I started off with the program, I was like overwhelmed with the possibilities and the amounts of scholarships that were possible to apply for. I was so stunned. I was like, what? You can apply for like 60 scholarships? That's crazy. I think the first thing that I kind of did was create a schedule, or some of a schedule, to try and break it down and not feel so overwhelmed. And when I started writing scholarships and picking out the high priority ones first, I realized it is really difficult to talk about yourself and like write genuinely about these scholarships. So that's when I turned to the course, and it actually helped me a lot by breaking down like what I actually have to write about. So I think it took me about 2 good months to figure out my own like writing abilities and learning how to write scholarships really. But then I had a base of like I think 10 or 12 scholarships that I could just like then take information from, put it into another scholarship, and it's just like started taking off really. I racked up maybe like I think by now it's 25 scholarships So especially with school, it was a little bit hard at the beginning, but it's so worth it at the end because you just feel so quick doing it after a while. It just feels so like you take what's been edited, kind of, you apply it to new scholarships, send it in again, and you're good for another one. And the system kind of keeps going, which I really liked, like especially now. It's just super easy to just keep going. At the beginning, though, it was hard to motivate myself, definitely.
Mhm.
Just so hard writing initially, like from scratch, about all the things that I've tried to do in high school. And the mentorship calls really helped with that. Like the mentors are super supportive and super motivating, and you just kind of like want to be where they are. You just want to, go to university, feel financially free, and that's really motivating. So I think the hardest thing for me was to motivate myself to write these scholarships, but the mentorship calls definitely helped with that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, well, there's a couple of things there. I think the first thing that I heard, and this is so true, and I think this is often what prevents people from starting the scholarship process, is that overwhelming feeling of having to write from scratch, because it can be so difficult, especially when the style of writing is so different from what you do in high school, which is instead you're doing a lot of self-reflection and reflecting on your own experiences. And I think that's something that a lot of students just don't have a lot of experience doing. So I think that can be such an overwhelming and like daunting thing to go through. But I think it's exactly what you said, which is once you create the templates, and once you've done a couple of applications, all of a sudden you begin reusing and recycling so much of the material over and over again. Once you put together those first few applications, and that really speeds up the process. And it sounds like for you, that process got a lot faster kind of after the first 2 months ish, once you had figured out your writing. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Like around the time when we had to start writing university applications, so like November ish, like the UBC application, I think for me was most important. And so right then and there, like I started feeling confident in my writing, especially after the edits from like the mentors and stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. And then the mentorship. It's funny that you say that, because now it's like, well, you're in that position and you're going to be the one next year that's like, I'm in university, I've got everything under control. And it's amazing when you just think about how much can change in like 8 months, or 9 months. It's like really amazing to see. But I think, having guidance and support through the process, and having students who have just been through it, like say Ari, or a student like that that's just been through it, is probably helpful for you, the same way that you sharing this information with our next set of students is going to be really helpful for them, right? So I think, but being able to see somebody that's gone through the process and say, okay, they did it, so I know it's possible, is probably really motivating. So I definitely understand how that was a big part of the process for you. Okay, awesome. And then, I mean, you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but in terms of like GrantMe, how would you say, or what would you say was like the most beneficial aspects of the program for you?
I think definitely the essay editing feature of the program, because even though I did like the course in the beginning in September and October, after that I felt still not so confident about my writing. Like I didn't know if I was doing it right, or if I didn't know if it was going to be successful. And so having this like external support system for writing especially, it really helps bring back confidence and saying, and like making me confident in that, yes, I'm doing this right. And so having that essay editing tool really helped throughout the process.
Got it. Yeah. And I mean, I think on our end, because I was on the other end of a lot of your final essays that you were submitting, and I got a chance to see a lot of them. And I think for us, what's so great is how consistent you were through that process, right? Because you really were on top of your applications, and you weren't submitting something once and then being like, okay, it's done. Like very often you were taking your time with every application, doing it in advance, weeks in advance, so that you'd have the time to have the editing and to make sure that you got all the support that you needed. And that makes it so easy for our team at GrantMe, because really it's creating space for us to really work together on an application and say, okay, how can we improve this over time, whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And I think that's something that you did a really, really good job of. And then I think outside of that, it's really true, because what I think when I look at, say, your 15th essay that you submitted versus your first, you're really reusing and recycling a lot of the same material. But your writing, if you just actually look at your essays, it has improved so much over time, right? And I think that's a huge testament to the work that you did throughout the year. But you can really see that transformation from September all the way through to April. And I guess it was probably around December that you submitted that. December 15th, you probably submitted your UBC application, right?
I think I submitted it for early acceptance. So I think December 1st was the due date. So I started writing it, I think, in the beginning of November-ish.
And that's when you kind of got better at you started to see your writing improve, is that?
Yeah. So I started writing applications in September, and I reused some of the material for the UBC application, but I started writing it really early, and the essay editing tool is really, I think, what helped me with like the success in this program. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's a huge part of it, because one thing we say to students a lot is once you get to that level of competition, so for example, with like a UBC President Scholarship, obviously it's incredibly competitive, and you're competing against students that really in terms of involvement are similar to you and close in your level. But I think a lot of the time what ends up differentiating students is really how clearly you can articulate your impact in an application. And I think that's a huge part of what you did really well. Was your impact was so clear, and really your writing was so authentic. And I think that comes through on paper when you're a scholarship committee or a university admissions team on the other side of it. So I definitely think that was a big part of your success, and it speaks to how great of a writer you are, and also how great your initiatives are. So yeah. Awesome. Okay. And then I guess my last question for you is, for students that are starting this, whether they're starting the scholarship process in grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, first year, because really scholarships don't ever stop, what would you say is your biggest piece of advice to students?
So when I came into this program, I realized that I thought I had good time management until I got piled 60 scholarships on me and my schedule, and I was like, what? So I think time management is key in this whole process, and this will be talked about in all mentorship calls and all the course as well. Just planning it out, getting a digital calendar, holding yourself accountable is also a really big theme within this program. Actually following your schedule and breaking down the scholarships to make it less overwhelming for yourself. And once I did that, I realized that this process isn't super, super difficult. Like, it's just all self-motivation. And once you get past the breakdown, it gets super, super, like, very easy compared to what you think it's going to be. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice, just time management and find ways to self-motivate yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely couldn't agree more with that, because I think it's amazing and great to come in and to have tools and resources to be successful and support with editing and all the scholarships in front of you. But ultimately, it is up to the student to obviously submit the applications and complete the applications as designed. And I think, again, it's students like you that are so successful with that, because you've mastered the skill of figuring out how to balance that process with everything else going on in your life, all of your leadership experiences, your academics, really everything that you're doing. And I think if you figure that out early on, there's absolutely no reason that you can't be successful, and you're absolutely proof of concept of that. So that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, and also just another note on top of that, it's just that grade 12 gets really difficult at some points, and it's okay to put scholarships on hold for a little bit and focus on school and just go back again. And it's a very flexible system, I think, and just being open to this flexibility is also really important throughout this process. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think flexibility and understanding that it's okay not to do everything and to try to be everything to everyone. And I think being able to take space for yourself, not even just for school, but really for self-care, because it is an overwhelming year, and it's important to be able to take that time for yourself to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first, and then everything else will fall into place after that. I think that is so important. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. Awesome. Okay, well, that's amazing. I think that you've given some of our younger students such a great understanding of what the process is going to look like. And I think for any student that watches this, it's really a learning opportunity because, Kseniya's gone through this process successfully. It's only April 1st, so there's still a lot of time, and she's already won like $33,000 in scholarships. And it's pretty amazing to see what you've done really over the course of 9 months, I guess, which is amazing. And I think it's really a testament to all the hard work that you've put in throughout the year. And I'm behind the scenes, and a lot of our team members are behind the scenes, but we watch everything that's happening, and we've seen everything that you've done and your commitment to the process. And our entire team is very, very proud of the work that you've done, and we couldn't think of a more deserving student to have the success that you've had. So I appreciate you sharing your experiences with our younger students.
Thank you. No, thank you. It really means a lot that you guys take so much time and care with all the people in the program, and I've really felt that truly. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Kseniya. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.